Good morning, my name's Rachel Clark and I'd like to welcome you to our SEND Festival on behalf of SEND Information Advice and Support and Parent and Carer Alliance Milton Keynes. Although we can't meet you in person, we hope we can provide you with lots of useful information from local organisations and support services for families with special educational needs and disabilities. I'd like to introduce you to our speakers this morning, the Mayor of Milton Keynes, Councillor Andrew Geary, Natasha Baker, MBE, Paralympian Equestrian, and Susan Akhtar, the Chair of PACA. And to officially open the event, I would like to invite Mr. Mayor to speak. Are you on mute, Councillor?
Call can hear me, Rachel?
Yes, thank you.
Shall I start again, or can you?
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay, Rachel, thanks ever so much. Hopefully the technological gremlin today and to open this very special and very different festival this year. I know that in normal times I'd have been looking forward to a pretty full-on day with you all in person, enjoying various fun activities and workshops and the other events that I know you would ordinarily put on. Sadly, COVID-19 doesn't allow us to meet in person this year. I'm actually the poorer for that, but nonetheless, I'm still looking forward to, I know, what is going to be a really special day. I do enjoy meeting in person. It's sad that we can't do it, but actually we've got a good lineup this morning, and well done to all of you who've worked so hard to put it on. We're not going to let a little thing like a national or even international pandemic stop us from having a festival. Hearing from some very different, very inspiring people and learning lots of new things, and I trust still having a bit of fun. But in welcoming you to this annual festival, the first and let's hope the only one to be held exclusively virtually, although perhaps the virtual route might be a good as well as in future years for those who actually can't for whatever reason join physically, I do want to say a few thank yous. Firstly, our guest speaker this morning, for giving up her time and for agreeing to share some of her experiences as a Paralympic medalist. Now, I met Natasha for the first time very briefly last week when we had a sort of dry run and a rehearsal for this. And I know from those 5 minutes that you're going to have a really interesting and I think a really fun speech from her this morning. I'm really looking forward to that. And I do promise that I won't let my daughter, whose enthusiasm for all things equine and equestrian, can you see the hand waving at you? She sat here, you know, sitting here next to me and listening to Natasha is actually part of her, well, I'm classing it as part of her GCSE online learning. There we go. There she is. So, Natasha, we're really looking forward to that. Thank you for joining us this morning. Secondly, to you, Rachel, and to all the team at SEND IAS and PACA, who I know have worked so incredibly hard to put today on, but not just that, who work so incredibly hard all year, doing the job that they do so well and looking after our young people with learning difficulties. Organising an event like this is a huge task. Doing a virtual online event for the first time is even more daunting. So well done. I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm privileged to be a part of it. Thank you for inviting me, all of you. And finally, to all of you parents, carers, those who work every day, most of the time unnoticed, but never ever unappreciated to take care of those with special challenges and needs. I know that every year brings new challenges. This year has probably been more challenging than most. It isn't just your resilience, but your tenacity and determination to do the very best for those that you care for that has probably been one of the most inspiring and inspirational things, and one of those very bright silver linings around otherwise what have been some pretty dark clouds throughout this year, if we're honest. To all of you, a big well done and a thank you for all that you've done, all that you're doing, and all that you're going to continue to do until we find our way out of the other side of this. And we know that there is kind of light at the end of this tunnel now. And hopefully with vaccinations on the horizon, we'll soon be back to something to what we know as life as normal. Look, you've probably heard about enough of me, because I know that there's a far better and more inspirational speaker than me waiting. And I'm the only thing that stands between you and Natasha. So Rebecca and I are looking forward to spending a bit of time with you this morning. Thank you for the invitation to the event. I hope you have a really good day. And Natasha, we're all really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. So over to our keynote speaker now. She's a Paralympian equestrian. She won 2 gold medals at London in 2012 and 3 at Rio in 2016. So over to Natasha Baker, MBE now.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Glitches now that I've passed over. But I just wanted to start off by saying it's a huge honour to be here this morning. Definitely very different to anything that I'm used to speaking at. It's very strange looking out of a window in front of me rather than a beautiful audience. But thank you all so much for tuning in and listening to me. So as Rachel said, I was extremely lucky to be able to compete as part of the London 2012 Paralympic Games and Rio 2016 Paralympic Games. But I thought that I might start and tell you about the beginning of my journey, right back to December the 30th, 1989, when I was born. I was born an able-bodied child. I was actually 10 days late, and my parents joke that I've been 10 days late ever since. And I had a very normal upbringing. I was actually brought up on the family farm. Horses have always been a massive part of my life, and my mum was also brought up around horses. I'm 4th generation at the farm, and I just loved being outside and around the ponies. I was actually put on a pony before I could even walk, in a basket saddle with an ice cream and a lolly, and I was the happiest child on the planet. And then when I got to 14 months old, I was running around the kitchen table one evening before bed, and I fell over, you know, as children do on a daily basis. And my parents didn't think anything of it, picked me up. I had my dinner, I had my usual bath time, and I went to bed. And apparently back then I was always an early riser. That's not quite so easy now. I'm 31. But my dad was a greengrocer, and so he left for market very early in the morning. And my mum hadn't heard from me by 6:30, and this was quite unusual. So she went into my bedroom and she found her little baby in her cot, unable to cry, unable to move any part of her body, unable to talk. And obviously it was a massive shock. I was there like a rag doll. And so I got rushed into hospital, and very quickly, luckily, my upper body came back, and obviously my voice, thank goodness. But I was left completely paralyzed from the waist down. And after lots and lots of tests, they thought I'd caught something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which you can make a complete recovery from. So initially the news was fairly positive. I was actually born without a thyroid, so I was under Great Ormond Street Hospital, and when I went in for a checkup, the doctor wasn't very happy with what had happened and signed me on to a neurologist. And after further tests, my diagnosis came out as transverse myelitis, an incredibly rare neurological virus that basically attacks the cells in the nervous system on the spine. And the damage was far worse than Guillain-Barré syndrome. The damage was permanent. And after years of going back to Great Ormond Street for weekly physio sessions and for lots of appointments with the neurologist, I was met with obviously positivity from Great Ormond Street because they're such an incredible hospital, but I was met with a lot of people that said that I wouldn't be able to do a lot of things. I was told that I would never walk. That was completely never going to happen for me. Riding would certainly not be an option for me. And there was lots of obstacles that they were saying that would be in my way. And back then, there was nothing like this. My parents really felt like they were on their own. They didn't really know any other parents that were in a similar position to them, and they were really dealing with this very individually. They transverse myelitis was so rare that there was no real information about it, and so they kind of felt on their own. And my granddad from my dad's side was very much into his alternative medicines. He was very ahead of his time, and he put me in touch with a healer, and I went for regular healing with a guy called Matthew Manning. And the first time I went to see him, my legs started twitching, and it was the first movement in my legs that my parents had seen in about 9 months after I caught transverse myelitis. And I went back into the hospital afterwards with a frame. And those can'ts, all of those people that said, oh, Natasha would never be able to walk, I think their jaws hit the floor as I walked into my appointment. And I guess I'm incredibly lucky that I had such positive parents that had very open minds to alternative medicines. Obviously followed doctor's orders, but were very open to other things as well. And I was always taught. My parents always told me that I can do absolutely anything that I want to. It may not be in the conventional way, but it's in the Natasha way, and that it may take me 10 times longer or 100 times longer to do something, but that doesn't matter as long as I give it a go and I try. That's the most important thing. And so, as I said, horses have always been there. But my parents wanted me, because my mum was so into horses, my parents wanted me to have a very balanced upbringing. So I played the violin really badly. I played the piano. I went to Brownies. I swam in an able-bodied swimming group, and I did horse riding. And I loved all of the things, but I loved riding the absolute most. And I kind of I loved swimming, I guess, the second most, but everything kind of dropped away. But riding was still my main passion. Every single second that I could spend outside with the horses was my favourite time. And so I was going in for regular physiotherapy sessions still. And one day my physio called my mum and said, look, Lorraine, can you please book Natasha in for some proper riding lessons? She is driving me mad. All she is doing the whole physio session is talking about riding. And that's when we got introduced to the Riding for the Disabled Association. And to be honest, we've never looked back. They really set the path for me. And this was when I was just before my 9th birthday. And I loved every single second that I spent at the RDA. It was so invigorating being around other disabled children that had the same passion as I did, and learning from them, learning how they ride, how they deal with their disabilities, not just on the horse, but away from the horses too. And my passion was reignited. And then in 2000, it was the first Paralympics that was televised. It was the Sydney Games. And I was absolutely transfixed by the Paralympics. I was 10 years old at this time. And I saw dressage for the first time. So dressage is the dancing horses. And again, I was mesmerized by these people that were like me. They had similar disabilities to me, yet they were getting on these horses and making them dance. And I just thought, well, if they can do it, then there's no reason that I can't do that as well. And so, as a sassy 10-year-old, I announced to my parents that one day I was going to win a Paralympic gold medal in dressage. And the ever positive parents that they were like, great, let's get started. So I can remember going down and telling my riding instructor the following Saturday, Clive, I'm going to win a Paralympic gold medal. Will you help me? And again, met with the positivity of the RDA. They said, of course. And then a few weeks later, the team that came home from Sydney actually went to my RDA centre. And I met my hero, Lee Pearson, who had won 3 gold medals in Paralympic dressage. And I can remember absolutely idolising him. And he came up to me and he said, you know, if you work really, really hard, I'm sure that you'll be on the same team as me one day, and offered me to hold his medal. And again, the ever sassy 10-year-old that I was, I said no, because I wanted the first gold medal that I held to be my own. So my journey was set in stone. My dream was set in stone. I wanted to win a Paralympic gold medal. I set out. I didn't really know what I had to do to get there. I was luckily talent spotted a year later when I was 11 and put onto the World Class Performance. So this gave me access to the best trainers, the best vets, the best nutritionists, the best psychologists, and some lottery funding, which, as we all know, is incredibly important for anybody that wants to get into sport, especially when they want to ride expensive horses. So I was put onto the World Class squad, and I was given access to all these incredible people. I worked my way up, and you can't compete internationally until you're 16. So I can remember, luckily, my birthday is the 30th of December, and your birthday counts from the 1st of January that year. So I could compete at an international in my 15th year. So I kind of had a bit of an advantage. And I can remember trotting down the centre line of my first international with the Union flag on my jacket and the Union flag on my saddlecloth, and feeling so immensely proud. I went on to win that competition, and to have the national anthem played for me the first time, that reignited my passion even more and made me realise that actually maybe my Paralympic dream wasn't actually that far away. So it came to Beijing a few years later, and in 2007 I'd had my horse that I won that international for a couple of years, but I knew that he wasn't going to be the horse that was going to win me my gold medal. He was the stepping stone horse to get me to the horse that would. And so we had to make the heartbreaking decision to sell him. So I went out horse shopping, my favourite kind of shopping, and I'm a girl that loves shopping. And I found what I thought was my dream horse, Ludo. So we brought him home in December 2007. I had an amazing year at the beginning of 2008. We were winning our competitions, we were going abroad and having the best time. And it was looking pretty positive that I might be selected for the Beijing Paralympic Games, the chance to really realise my dream. And a few days before the final selection, Ludo went out in the field and had a bit of a party and came in hopping lame. He had done a tendon injury, and my dream was over. I was definitely not going to be going to the Paralympics with a 3-legged horse. So that was completely heartbreaking for me. It was probably one of the hardest years of my career so far, because not only had we put all of our love and passion into Ludo, but we'd also put all of our money into him. And I pretty much had nothing left to go out and buy another one. He was okay, I might add. He didn't have to be put down. He just became a very expensive field ornament for a year. So yeah, not only had I had no money, I'd also lost out on my dream of going to the Beijing Paralympics. So with a lot of work, I wrote around to all of the local businesses. I wrote to my local council and said, look, you know, this is what's happened. Is there anything you can do for me? And I managed to rally around a large pot of money in normal terms, a small pot of money in horse buying terms, and went out horse shopping again. And that's when I came across JP. And our philosophy as a family has always been that everything happens for a reason. And this is when I realized that actually Beijing wasn't meant to happen for me. Ludo wasn't meant to happen for me, because JP was and London was. And I bought JP in 2009. In 2010, I was selected as a reserve rider for the World Equestrian Games. In 2011, I was selected to compete at my first European Championships. And I was 21 then, and I was quite young when I was competing against current European, World and Paralympic champions that were all around 20 years older than me, with 20 more years experience. And I went into that arena as the rookie, and I came home with 2 gold medals. I was the European champion. But London was just around the corner. I'm a London girl. And so to compete on home turf was just the most magical thing ever. I had the best 3 weeks of my life. And just to get selected was incredible in itself. Now, I was told that JP was probably worthy of a bronze medal at the Paralympic Games, and that actually I should probably think about upgrading him after I'd done so well. Well, as you all know, we had no money and I had no option. And I believed in JP. I thought that he was very, very special. So I went into London kind of hoping for a medal of a colour. You know, it's great winning a European Championships, but Paralympics is on a whole other scale. So I went into London with no pressure. And it was the most incredible 5 minutes of my life, trotting down that centre line with 11,000 people there watching me, because I had that on my saddlecloth and that on my jacket. And just entering the arena, I was met with this massive crowd and these applauses that I've never heard before. And JP certainly thought that those 11,000 people were there just for him. And he really, really shone. And I can remember I was 5th to go in the class, and there was 23 people in my class. I had an agonizing 2.5-hour wait to find out my results. When I came out of the arena, I knew I'd achieved my personal best. I knew I'd achieved a Paralympic record, but I didn't know if I'd got that gold medal. And so the second last rider went into the arena, and it was my biggest competition, a German rider called Britta. And I can remember watching her test. But when I say watching like this, it was the worst 5 minutes of my life. I honestly think it was the most nerve-wracking 5 minutes of my life anyway. And the scores were so, so tight. And she came out at 76.04%, literally that far behind me. The last rider went into the arena, and unfortunately she wasn't a medal contender. But after the class had finished, up on the board, it was Natasha Baker, Team GBR, gold medal winner. And my dream of when I was that 10-year-old little girl sitting down in front of her TV with her parents saying, I want to win a Paralympic gold medal one day. And then this was put around my neck. I realized that dream, and my goodness, it's heavy. I wish I could be there to show you guys so you could feel this. This was put around my neck in front of my home crowd, and it was the most special moment of my entire life. I'm sorry, I know I'm going slightly over my 15 minutes. 2 more minutes, Rachel. But a few years later, I had the Rio Paralympic Games 4 years down the line. I was still riding my very special JP, but the tables had turned. I was now the one to beat. I went into London kind of the unknown, no pressure on my shoulders. But going into Rio, I had all the pressure on my shoulders. Everybody knew and expected me to win those gold medals again. And in Rio, I had the chance of winning 3 because I was also part of the team. So that was an added pressure for me. I went in for the first day, and JP took a disliking to the scoreboards that were on the floor, and he spooked and took off with me down the long side. So it wasn't the best start. I went into the test not feeling as confident as I did going into London because of the spook just before I went in. But again, he knew that it was a special moment, and he knew that he had to shine. And I was incredibly fortunate to have 3 of these put around my neck and become a 5-time Paralympic gold medalist. You know, I set out to win 1 gold medal. I was the child that was told that I would never walk, that I would never ride, and JP would probably never win a Paralympic gold medal. In total, he won 11 golds from Paralympics, Europeans, and World Championships. And so I think in total, my story just goes to show that actually, if you're told you can't do anything, it doesn't matter. Don't listen, because you absolutely can. If you want it enough and you're willing to put in that blood, sweat, and tears, and my goodness, there's been a lot of all 3 of those, it just goes to show that actually dreams can come true 100% if you want them enough. So thank you all so much for listening to me. That was literally a whistle-stop tour of my journey. I'm sorry, Rachel, I went over my 15 minutes, but I really hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of these sessions. I know you're going to get so much out of them. And yeah, I just wish something like this was around when I was a child. But yeah, have the best few days. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Natasha. That was really inspiring to hear the challenges and how you overcame them. Thank you very much. We've got a few questions here. I wonder if you could tell us a bit about your training day as an elite sportswoman, please.
I think we might be having some questions now, maybe.
Seems like there might be some issue on the other end. So if there's a pregnant pause, you can always rely on a politician to fill it, can't you?
Yeah.
So if you guys do get back in, just do for a 2-way conversation with Natasha for about the next hour, or probably a 3-way, because I've got Rebecca here who's over the other. Can I be honest with you? I didn't realise that you were from farming stock. So am I. I'm a farmer, and I've got hire a pony because they're too expensive and a hobby. So I'm now going to get real grief thanks to that this morning. Just one question, if I can, and I'm going to jump in. I promised I wouldn't dominate this or let her. Have you come across a charity in Milton Keynes called Ride High?
I have, yes.
You have. Have you done anything with them? Because if you haven't, then can I ask you, am I allowed to make that link between you? Because I think you speaking like you've done this morning with them and with us, and the way you've inspired us will be absolutely brilliant for them. So if you will allow me to, I'm going to make that link.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if I might know the CEO, actually. Is it a new CEO?
Yes. And she's a lady and she's a farmer's daughter. Well, she studied agriculture at Reading anyway. Does that give you some clues? Yes.
Yeah, I know Olivia really well. She's a good friend of my trainers. So yeah, 100%.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Natasha, Susan, you're muted.
Did hear?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, is it okay to carry on?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Have we got some questions for Natasha, or do I go straight into my element, my bit?
Yes, we've got a couple of questions for Natasha. What are the main dates in your calendar for 2021, please?
Well, I guess it all depends on coronavirus, but fingers crossed, Tokyo Paralympic Games. I've got a new horse. So bought her in 2019, and she has been going amazingly well. But of course, coronavirus has put a lot of stumbling blocks in our way. So yeah, I'm really, really hoping. Everything seems super positive at the moment that the Paralympic Games is going to go ahead this year. So yeah, just fingers crossed, please, everybody.
Thank you. And could you give us some information about your training as an elite sportswoman? What's your day look like?
To be honest with you, every single day for me is so different, which I love. So I generally ride 6 days a week. I've just got the one horse at the moment. Sometimes I have 2 or 3 in training with me. So I normally, without coronavirus, I'm normally doing lots more of these kind of things. So I love going in and inspiring schools, speaking to businesses, doing after dinner speeches, and I've traveled globally doing that, which I absolutely love doing. I think it's really, really important to do what I've just done and just spread my journey, spread my story, and tell people my journey. And so yeah, I love doing that. And as you could probably tell, I love talking. So I think that's really, really important to tell people the ups and downs, because you guys only generally see the highs. You only see the 5 minutes that we're in the arena. You only see us picking these up, but you don't hear about the tough times, and the difficulties that actually we have on a day-to-day basis. I also go to physio, so I've got that this afternoon. I go to the gym. I normally swim, but of course I can't really do that at the moment. So yeah, my days are very, very mixed, and I love that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the dedication that that it requires. And how different was it competing in Rio to London?
It was incredibly different. I guess the first thing was the heat, and that's something that we're also going to have to contend with out in Tokyo, even more so. You know, we were lucky that in London we were competing outside, and actually it stayed dry. But of course, it wasn't nearly 40 degrees, which is what we're definitely going to be getting out in Tokyo. I think the biggest difference for me personally was the pressure that I had on my shoulders. Going into London, I was the rookie. I was 22. I didn't have the pressure. I didn't have the expectation. Whereas going into Rio, I definitely felt that, and I had to work so hard on my sports psychology, which is just a whole nother talk in itself. And that was really, really interesting of how much I learned about myself, how much I learned about myself as an athlete. And so, yeah, that was probably my biggest difference. But of course, traveling the horses, you know, in London, they literally got in a horse box and drove an hour down the road. This time, they traveled out to Europe, got on a plane, traveled halfway across the world. So it was very, very different for the horses.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Natasha. That was really inspiring. Thank you for sharing your story. And I wish you could be in the room with us, and we could give you a big round of applause, but a big virtual round of applause. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to hand over to Susan Akhtar, the chair of PACA now, please.
Yeah, thank you, Natasha. That was hugely inspirational. Thank you very much for sharing that story. As a parent of a child with additional needs, I had a bit of an emotional roller coaster listening to you. So I got quite emotional at one point, but felt a huge amount of pride in you know, sort of hearing your journey, and obviously as part of being Team GB as well. So thank you. I think there's a number of patterns there that you sort of picked out in terms of networking, in terms of that positive parent. And I think that's a theme that I just want to carry on today. And I think that's part of our day to day. So generally, I want to say good morning and a very warm welcome to everyone to our first ever Parent Carer Conference, as the Mayor said. Being online is actually quite different. Last year was a very, very different event. We could obviously attend in person, and I know how incredibly useful these events are, not only for networking and meeting other parents. I mean, I've met some very, very good friends during these conferences, but also gaining a huge amount of knowledge from the workshops and understanding how we can actually support our child, and hopefully through that very positive mindset that Natasha's shared today. So I'm a volunteer. I'm a parent of PACAS, the Parent and Carers Alliance in Milton Keynes. And for us, it's all about listening and sharing and hearing parents' voice in terms of how we can improve services here in Milton Keynes. We're not where we want to be as of yet, but we're definitely moving forward. We're on a journey and we're going in the right direction. So last year, we asked parents what really matters to them in terms of what support they'd like. And the top 3 things we had were not to fight all the time, to have a happy, positive future for my child, and to get the right support. And that still stands in terms of those areas, and we're sort of trying to sort of expand on those and identify how we can actually support you. So please do join us. Sorry, I'm hearing some interference. I'm just going to try and mute. Right, hopefully that's slightly better. So as the Mayor said, 2020 has been tough. It's been eventful, to say the least, for all of us. But everyone has been absolutely amazing. It's been incredibly tough. Lots of great work's been done. Some of us are still home learning, as I call it, homeschooling, supporting. And Natasha, be pleased to know you also have a few fans in the room as well that are missing an hour of school to sort of listen to your story, and incredibly pleased. So in terms of PACA, what have we done this year? So we've met with the local authority on a fortnightly basis. We run multiple workshops on many aspects of how to support your child, whether it's with the EHC plans, whether it's with support. We also ran a scone making session last weekend, which was really well attended. We've grown by 50%. The committee, there's a number of us, we're all volunteers. We've attended many meetings. Our priorities for the forthcoming year are being shaped at the moment, but number 1 on our list is communication, and I think that's critical. So I think if we all communicate in a far positive manner, work together, there's a lot we can do together to improve the lives of our children. So just sort of sharing a bit about in terms of what improvements we have made. There's now a helpline that the local authority have worked with us and they've set up. So any questions, queries, I can go direct to that. We also have an online newsletter. The first one went out from the head of SEN here in Milton Keynes in January. We also got a number of online training courses. So yeah, that's all I was going to share in terms of what we as PACA do and who we are. So please do join us. Now, and finally, really, I just wanted to say thank you for coming today. Thank you for joining our virtual opening ceremony. I really hope you enjoy the festival today. The first workshop we have today is on positive behaviour support and then parenting in a pandemic. Now, after lunch, we've got a music and movement session with Ragdolly Annas. You may have heard of them, fantastic organisation. And our website has all the details of the workshops. So please do try and visit that today. So it's www.mksendinfoday, that's spelled mksendinfo.uk. Now there's lots of our videos to be posted on our Facebook page, and details of all our partners, and obviously normally we have a big stall of exhibitions, and so that their details will also be online today. We have got some evaluation forms which we'll send out to you so we can actually look at how we plan next year. So your feedback again is critical. Yeah, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can all meet face to face next year. So thank you all very much.